Welcome to the Podcaster, the home of Farcaster builders. Hello, everyone. We are now recording the eighth episode of the Podcaster. We are here today with Karan from Wilcard. Thank you so much, Karan, for joining us. We'd love for you to start with maybe a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. I've been like 5 years into startups, and 3 years into crypto, building on social crypto use cases, and yeah, pretty much like I'm an entrepreneur, love building things, and this is my next step.
Cool. And I wonder, like, what led you into building Wildcard? Like, how did you come up with the idea?
Yeah. So I was in New York for NFT NYC, a bit bored. I didn't like the event much. So like at this time, I was just like, got me to thinking, what are the crypto products that have worked in the past? I was also looking at, Pac-Man's podcast around what he did with Blast. So the idea was like, if you can design a better economic, incentive or a new economic model for people to play with, it might unlock some huge value. So I looked at what are the two things that have worked recently and worked pretty big in some use cases. It was Friendtech and Degen. And I was looking at, okay, you have Friendtech as a way of buying and selling profiles. You have Degen as a way of, giving attention, some financialization model. And just like, what if we combine those two? How would that experience look like? So you can buy and sell profiles, but instead of getting into a private group chat where the user have to do extra work for generating value to the ticket holders, what if you could just share the revenue from the tips that a person is receiving? And because it is built on Farcaster, it can be cross, like even if they do post content on podcast, they can still generate some tipping revenue. So that was the initial idea, and I just wanted to try out this economic model and see how it goes.
Makes sense. So essentially, like the main difference would compared to Frentech would be the fact that you're splitting, like distributing the revenue to the user generated, which you obviously cannot have on Frentech.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, if you can go over the Wildcard product, like, how does
Yes.
Wildcard look like today?
Yeah, so like we launched the first version of it, and we like just put in a social feed along with it. And to my surprise, like it was actually an experiment that we are putting out like sort of two things and see which one the users are more attracted towards. So people really like the client part of it, and they just like came in and they were like, can you build more, can you build a native app, and can you do all these things? And that just led us to like focusing more on being a client and solving some pain points that have been there out for the community, embracing financialization, tipping, and all these things natively into the product. So yeah, right now, like we have evolved to a it's a client which is based for like which is better suited for communities and token gating and use cases around tipping. But in general, I'd say we are going into a direction of just becoming a good Farcaster client, which is more wild.
I see. So, like, do you feel that has changed over time? So at the beginning, it was sort of like trying to be like imitate in some way Frentech with like better capabilities, but now it has converted into like a full-blown client, which will sort of like cater also to a different audience, like not just speculators, but also yeah. So
For sure.
like, which sort of like features do you think you're aiming to have that WordPress, for example, will not support or other clients will not support?
I think the biggest one that we have is like native tipping. So we have tipping experiences. One, you can press a button and natively see what all currencies you have, what are the different allocations you have for them, and you can tip them. There is a swipe feature that we have, which is basically you can swipe left to not tip and swipe right to tip. So it's like new way to consume content. And the second is again the content can also be ranked on based of how much which content is most tipped inside a currency. And all this is happening inside a layer of like which currency ecosystem do you believe in. So you can switch to Moxie mode, you can switch to Degen mode, or you can switch to our wild mode. And you can basically see the experience that is custom for that currency or that community. So that is something like that is totally unique right now.
I wonder, like, how do you imagine Wildcard 3 years from now? I know, like, obviously this is like a very difficult thing to imagine because you started fairly recently. But what do you envision of it?
Yeah, so like I tell you the impact of it. So like it'll be a social fire product. Like which features are the killer features, it remains to be iterated and tested. The impact that we would have wanted to be created is like onboard the crypto Twitter onto Wildcard and onboard different token communities that are not right now on Farcaster ecosystem onto Farcaster ecosystem via Wildcard. So we need to solve a bunch of like things for that to happen. We need to have a smooth onboarding. We need to provide them initial discoverability, and we need to provide them with hooks which are beyond just consuming the social feed right now, because we don't have that much amount of great content as much as Twitter. So some sort of games or stuff like that to compensate for their experience. So
Yeah,
the product would be a combination of all these things, and the impact would be like we would have migrated a lot of crypto Twitter users over to Farcast. But yeah, it could be
I
one
think
year.
yeah, I think the main issue for crypto Twitter users at this point in time is that like they built a huge social graph on Twitter. They became like very reputable accounts. They have like a large followers count. Like if they now decide to move to Farcaster, they essentially have to start from scratch. So
Yes,
solving that like culture problem must be very difficult, I guess.
yes. So that's why I'm planning to like go, let's say, in communities. And second, like I'm open to experimenting with things like if you can prove you have like if you can just sign in with your Twitter, and we can look at your social graph. And if you are a person that gets good engagement on Twitter, we can give you some spotlight for, let's say, the first 30 days while you are on Podcaster.
Wow, that's very cool. Because I guess like accessing, like reading Twitter data must be super difficult because obviously Twitter restricts its API.
Yeah.
So
For this, we
yeah,
just need
so
like number of followers can be a proxy. Like that is simple. Like you, when you sign in, they can give you the profile, and we can, if you have more than, let's say, 10,000 followers on Twitter, we can give you a spotlight.
super cool, super cool. And I wonder like how are you planning to capture users like apart from like crypto Twitter users, like even like users from Farcaster. What's your strategy to onboard them?
So users for like the first step is getting users from Farcaster, and the strategy for them getting them is basically from podcast. So we post about what we do, we listen to users, and we build out the features that they want. That has been working for us good so far, and the aim is to just like keep on doing that, keep on improving the client experience and providing more and more features. And I don't think there is any growth hacks needed there. It can be a like WordPress is a good distribution channel, and or just like posting on Wildcard now basically gets users from podcast to onboard to Wildcard.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I wonder, like overall, what's your take on the whole tipping system? Like that's essentially what got you excited at the beginning. But I wonder, like, how do you see that? Like, do you think that Degen will end up being like one of the largest tipping currency? Do you think that there's space for other currencies as well? And overall, like, what's your take behind tipping?
Sure. So tipping as a meta, I love it. Like I love the way that if you want to show love, if you want to show appreciation, you can just tip in multiple currencies to a person or to a content if you like that. So this is like a financialized layer on top of like driving attention or providing cap. Like when we like something, or we are basically saying that we are signaling that you have some social capital value, and this is just adding some financialization to it. So I love the meta. We clearly know that people love to do it. They try it out and do all sort of things. As per implementations of it, dgen and other tipping mechanisms, I think we are still to we are still far from the ideal implementation of it or ideal working of it. So implementation is simple, like everyone gets some allowance, and you can tip from your allowance or you can tip from the balance that you have. Now you have like different versions of this. Three most common are: you have dgen, you get allowance, you can tip from allowance. You have moxie, which is also in a way, let's say, attention economy token. It is auto earned by your liking recasting and quoting and all those things. You have ham, which is purely, you have some allowance component, but most of it is like you have to load money and you can just tip from floaties. Now, like Degen is definitely the king in terms of how many integrations they have and how many apps adopt the standard of their tipping or their token. In terms of discovering content, like we have at Wildcard, we have a feed which is most tipped in Degen, most tipped in Moxie, most tipped in Ham, to sort of like discover content. And personally, like I've Degen content is more towards what different apps that are using Degen, and then you can see there are farmers. The Moxie content, on the other hand, is more towards whoever are the OGs of the Farcaster ecosystem, their content and content that they have interacted with. So I would see ideally something that is on the Moxie side, but little bit shifted towards Degen, so that it's not just the OGs, but other people also get some say in the voting. But the content that is generated is interesting and insightful. So that's like where my ideal tipping tipping ecosystems implementation would lie.
That makes sense. And we'd love for you to also explain, like, what's your take on Farcaster? Why did you decide to build on the Farcaster ecosystem, and overall, what's your thesis behind it?
Sure. So like I believe in like the ethos that the account should be decentralized and it should be interoperable. Like anyone should be able to build on top of your identity graph and your content that you create. So the idea is simple. There are so many applications that people want to build on top of Twitter, but they can't because it is, as you said, the APIs, they block API access, or they're prohibitively expensive to build on. So what you are left with is like that you can see that the future is people want to build things on top of things, and the future is going to be something that has an open social graph. Now there were like two possible choices, Lens versus Farcaster. I chose Farcaster because it has much more quality users, according to me right now, which are developers and early adopters. So it's a better market to bootstrap on, and it's also very closely aligned with Base. So that was like my reason of choosing it. What do I think about it? I think it's still in very nascent stages. We have some like we have like 40 or 50,000 DAUs right now. Maybe if you account for bots, the actual number of DAUs could be somewhere around 10,000. We have a massive job as an ecosystem ahead of us to onboard the rest of users. So sort of tried coming but didn't stay. We need like a lot of people like I know that created accounts but went away. So we need to find a way to have that magical, like have them experience something magical right before they can churn.
Cool. And we're approaching the end of the episode, but we'd love for you to share with us some alpha. What's coming up on Wildcard?
Well, when does this episode go live? So it'll depend on that.
It will go live probably tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Cool. So the next alpha that I have for you is like we have a native app coming out. We've been working on it for about more than a month now. It's going to be a great native experience. You're going to love the Tinder swipe, as we call it. So that's like a new way to consume content. You're going to have Instagram style stories to consume content. So we are basically experimenting with different formats in which people can consume content around the channel or around tipping and seeing how it goes. So we keep on building those wild things. Second thing that we are trying with it or potentially working on, it's not finalized yet, is messaging with XMTP. So if your identity is decentralized, we are seeing if people would be interested in decentralized messaging. That's just an experiment we might try out and see. So those are some alphas for you.
Super cool. I really appreciate Karan, your time. It is great to chat with you. Super interesting what you're building. I encourage everyone to try out Wilcard. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Sebastian.